I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and then I caught my fiancée covering for her sister's affair. Part 3. 9th update. Sarah contacts me asking I helped her ex-brother-in-law in his bitter divorce with his ex-wife. I honestly hope everyone can follow this, because sometimes I can't. I have a friend, Marty, who is currently engaged in a bitter divorce from his wife. She was caught cheating over a month ago, and I was one of the people who helped expose her, so there's a bit of history here. They also have a young child who is living with the husband and being taken care of by his parents when he's at work. Now here's where people are going to have to start keeping score. The soon-to-be ex-wife in this situation is actually the sister of my former fiancée, Sarah. We are currently in it's complicated kind of relationship. 2 days ago, she came to me and said that she heard her sister and parents conspiring to falsely accuse Marty of something that would allow for an emergency custody hearing. She wants my help in turning the tables on her sister, and yes, there's some bitterness here. Like I said, it's complicated. Now, even though she's my former fiancée, I think Sarah is a good person and genuinely interested in helping. But I also wonder if she's trying to rope me into this situation to prove to me that she hates her sister. You see, the sister was an accessory to one of the main reasons why Sarah is a former fiancée. My gut instinct is to tell her to just inform Marty, and his attorney, about what's going on and to wipe our hands of the situation. However, she's urging me to help entrap her sister in some way so that she can turn evidence over to Marty, so he can play the highly coveted, at least in divorces, Uno reverse card. Her most convincing argument is that this opportunity will probably not come again. I agree with that, but assuming for the moment that I actually could help in some way, would I be the a-hole for not doing so? Particularly since my motivation is basically just being leery of Sarah's motivation? After all, she could theoretically just testify on Marty's behalf if it came to that. Reading the top comments before the update. Just tell Marty what Sarah told you. Plotting to entrap his wife behind your friend's back is not a wise decision, particularly when a child is involved. The divorce sounds complicated enough without the two of you planning something which sounds like the motivation for Sarah's revenge. Not the a-hole. I hear you on this, but the problem I'm facing is that me just telling on them isn't really good enough, it's essentially hearsay. I need Sarah to go and front the claims to the lawyer and sign an affidavit, but she's reluctant to do that since it will then be obvious to her parents that she's the one who did them in. Hence why she's asking me to help her collect evidence to pass along to Marty in a more anonymous way. I honestly feel like we've been going around and around on this for the last day or so, but to put it bluntly, she's struggling with dealing with a crap show that will erupt by being willing to testify, especially since she's currently living with her parents. I do get where she's at, she wants to do the right thing, but she's threading the needle regarding her own situation. The one good thing about this is that it won't be too late for her to testify on behalf of her soon-to-be former brother-in-law, so if she waffles a bit, hopefully she'll do the right thing in the end. My gut instinct is to tell her to just inform Marty, and his attorney, about what is going on and to wipe our hands of the situation. Do it. If you wait too long to pull off Sarah's magical Uno reverse card, it might be too late. The wheels are in motion and crap might happen at any time. This isn't a movie, this is a person's life. Not the a-hole to tell them today. I can give Marty the heads up, but other than that it's pretty useless, because me saying that Sarah told me about a conversation is basically hearsay. I need to convince her to go and sign an affidavit, which will then become part of the legal record, and probably cause her to alienate not just her sister but her parents as well. Maybe that'd be for the best, but she's kind of resisting doing that and wants to be more underhanded. I'm probably going to split the difference on this one and try to get her to do what I think is the right thing. 10th update. It was almost 2 months ago when I made my original post about my former fiancée reaching out to me, asking for help regarding an issue in her family. I think some people had some decent advice in that thread, and it really helped me clarify my own thoughts on the matter. Basically, my distrust in the sincerity of Sarah's intentions was both probably overblown on my part and immaterial to what I really should have been doing as a friend to both her and Marty. In regards to Sarah, I think it became very apparent to me that her relationship with me wasn't as important a motivator in her actions as I had selfishly assumed. She had, still has, to be honest, a huge beef with her sister and feels incredibly horrible about not just her part in Marty's current situation, but how the upheaval has affected her 3-year-old niece. Add to that a lifetime of family resentment, and I think she was keen to do something, anything, to screw over Evelyn. Who wouldn't be? Her reaching out to me was more or less because, Out of all the people she knows, I'd be the one most likely to help and offer good advice. I'll admit to being overly cynical about her trying to use the situation to appear like she was making amends and working on her issues, but upon reflection, I realized that not everything in her life revolves around me or our relationship. Basically, I need to chill on being distrustful of people when they're finally doing what I'd actually want them to do. Lesson learned for anyone who's felt betrayed: you can rob yourself of positive emotions by living in the past instead of the present. As for Marty, given that Sarah had given me the heads up about her sister and parents' plot to try and file a false report accusing him of child abuse, I was 100% dead set on informing him as soon as I could, regardless of Sarah's desire to be more subtle. That being said, I did make one last-ditch effort to get Sarah to be the one to reach out and do this, as I thought it might help her mend her relationship with her soon-to-be former brother-in-law and begin making amends to both him and her niece. As I guessed, her hesitancy, and the reason she wanted my help, was because her parents were more or less fully on board with this plan, and she wasn't emotionally strong enough to deal with any potential fallout from them, particularly since she'd spent her entire life being bullied by her family. To make matters worse, she was at their mercy since she was living with them. We discussed it, and I promised her that if this came back to her, I'd get her a place to live if she needed it. She asked me if I would go with her when she faced Marty, and I almost said yes out of habit, but I declined. I told her that I thought it would be better for everyone if she faced this one alone, and she reluctantly agreed. Obviously, I wasn't there when Sarah and Marty met, but I do know it took place at his parents' house. His parents obviously knew about Sarah's role in covering up for Evelyn's infidelity, and there were some choice words directed at her. Fair enough. Sarah told Marty about the plot, then they called Marty's lawyer, and she gave a statement. For all the drama preceding it, the meeting was over as quickly as that. One thing that Sarah did say, however, is that she was grateful that Marty let her play with her niece. He didn't have to do that, but it meant a lot to her. I could literally hear the sorrow in her voice, to the point where I had a fleeting thought that maybe Sarah is carrying too much of a burden on her shoulders for what were ultimately Evelyn's actions. To be frank, I don't know how to address this, or if I should. I'll try to finish this up quickly since there's a word limit. Several weeks passed. My offer of a place to stay wasn't needed. Sarah managed to get her own apartment not too long after we spoke, although I did speed up the money I was paying her back by a couple of weeks to help facilitate this. Anyway, shortly after she moved out, Evelyn finally made her move. I don't want to get into exactly what she accused Marty of, but it was pretty vile, the kind of accusation that could get you killed in prison if it were true. Frankly, I was shocked when I heard it, because as despicable as Evelyn is, I never thought she was that horrid, nor her parents, who seemingly went along with this. As you can imagine, there was an emergency child custody hearing in front of a judge that night, and as they were discussing the charges, Marty's lawyer pulled out a dated and notarized affidavit from Sarah detailing the plot, as well as a recorded interview on a USB stick. Now, I would love to say that Evelyn ended up in jail or was driven out of town, or got her just desserts in some other way, but in truth, we don't know yet. She has some charges against her from this stunt, and I'm not privy to what they are. But in all likelihood, I don't have much hope that she'll get more than a slap on the wrist, otherwise our prisons would be filled with acrimonious divorcees. That being said, the custody hearing did not go Evelyn's way. There is now a court order granting Marty primary custody, and Evelyn must have a court-appointed observer with her when she visits their child. This order will be in place until the divorce is finalized, which might be coming up soon, because I think getting caught out so badly has taken a lot of the wind out of Evelyn's sails when it comes to making this divorce difficult. Marty says that her lawyer has been in contact about discussing a settlement, which is a positive sign. And that's pretty much where we're today. As you can imagine, Sarah is pretty much persona non grata with her family right now, and that's not likely to change, even though it's the holidays. She accepted that this would likely be the case if she went ahead and gave her statement, so she says she was prepared for it, but I can tell that even though her family has largely treated her like dog crap for most of her life, it still pains her to have contact cut off like this. She jokes to me that it's helping me get past my issues with them, but I can tell it still hurts. A lot of people who know about my backstory here will probably be pissed about this, but I rather impulsively offered for Sarah to help me spend my parents' airline miles and travel with me to Australia to visit my brother and his family. I honestly didn't think she would accept because she's a teacher and they're not quite on break yet, but she surprised me. My brother has a large property in semi-rural Queensland with a few bungalows on it. We cleaned out the snakes yesterday, and Sarah and I are neighbors who are looking forward to doing some surfing on Christmas Day. Our relationship is still very much it's complicated, hence the separate accommodations, but I have to admit that I'm feeling better about things in general. My biggest issue with Sarah, and why I cancelled our wedding, was because I didn't understand how she could act the way she did with her sister. Now, knowing the backstory between the two, and seeing her literally torch that relationship with the fury of 1,000 suns, it's hard for me to still be seriously worried about Evelyn's influence on her. It would require a degree of paranoia that not only do I not possess, but one that would probably qualify as a mental illness. Still, we're both taking it slow. To be frank, we're in this sort of weird, exclusive, platonic relationship. It obviously can't last, and while Sarah has made it pretty clear how she would like to resolve the situation, I'm being a bit cagey. It's not like I don't love her, that's never really been the issue. I can't even say that I don't trust her, since most of the reasons why I felt that way have been excised like a tumor. It's just that I'm unsure about the trajectory of our relationship. I'm not in a hurry to rush back to the altar anytime soon, and I think most of my friends would disown me if I did, given I just canceled the wedding at the last moment a few months ago. Sarah knows this, and she's been largely accepting of it, but even if she tells me she doesn't care about getting married, I can't help but feel like she secretly does. I guess the best way for me to explain my thinking is that the relationship we had, which put us on the path to marriage, is done and gone. Maybe we'll build another one that heads in that same direction someday, but I'm no longer sure that's something I want. And it's not just about Sarah, it's about anyone. I guess all the marital problems I've seen over the last half year have left a bad taste in my mouth. In any case, whatever future we do have together will have to accommodate these feelings, and I want to be certain that I'm not wasting her time or leading her on. I guess time will tell. Anyway, thanks to the 5 people who are still invested in my crappy life story. If something else interesting or exciting happens, I'll probably post it on my profile. It's been a wild ride, but all of the support I've gotten from the broader Reddit community has been awesome. Thanks again. Reading the top comments before the update. So I'm curious what the parents' thought process was to go along with her plan. Is it just to punish Marty for not wanting to be cheated on? Is it because their poor baby got what she had coming? But good on you all, you helped make the niece's life better. Now you both need therapy, because while you're understanding where you have issues, going 100% in the other direction isn't the answer. I'm pretty sure it was all about custody of the kid. Marty and his daughter were living with his parents, so that made him de facto the primary caregiver. He was letting Evelyn have it with the divorce, basically asking for primary custody, letting her have their daughter every other weekend, the house, and part of her retirement accounts. Basically, if Marty got even close to what he was asking for, they'd be lucky to see their granddaughter once a month, maybe twice. I think they couldn't tolerate that and it drove them to be stupid. On Evelyn's part, I think she was hoping to get Marty to tell his lawyers to back down. I don't think they anticipated being foiled at the initial hearing and were hoping to negotiate. Definitely a case of F around and find out if you ask me. Evelyn's parents were worried about losing access to their grandchild. I'd imagine that had the parents been more condemning toward Evelyn and taken Marty's side, that would have gone a long way toward him not being malicious about their ability to see the kid. But instead they did the dumbest thing and have all but assured they're only rarely going to see their grandchild. Congratulations, they played themselves, lol. Yeah, when I heard what happened I said, literal definition of F around and find out. The completely bizarre thing is that I used to think Sarah's parents were decent people. They sure talk a good game, but I've come to realize that's all it is, talk. Edit. I just found out something today from Sarah that I didn't know, but I feel it's pretty relevant to the discussion. Basically, Marty's lawyer presented a lot more evidence than just Sarah's testimony. They also had his kid screened and examined by 2 different psychologists within the week after they first found out about the impending accusations. During this process, some stuff came out. Basically, their daughter caught Evelyn and the affair partner in flagrante delicto at their home multiple times. Her mom was giving her ice cream so she wouldn't say anything. Marty's lawyer read from a transcript of one of the psychologist interviews and, well, I'll just say the phrase big wee came up. This poor kid, no one deserves a crappy mother like that. Now the fact that she only gets court-supervised visitation makes a lot of sense. Sarah says that it sounds like the kid just saw them doing it a couple of times, not that the affair partner did anything to her. Needless to say, I think Evelyn is in royal crap right now. I'm surprised her parents haven't booted her ass from their home. Last update 1 year later. Hi everyone. It's been a while since I've logged into Reddit on this account, only to see a couple hundred messages begging me for an update, so I figured I'd at least sort out a few things that are commonly being asked. First off, Marty and Evelyn are divorced. It took a bit over half a year for it to be finalized, but despite Evelyn's hijinks and stalling, that seems to be about typical for where we live. The only real notable thing about the divorce itself is that Marty was granted primary physical custody of their daughter, which was seen as a bit of a coup considering how these things typically go. But to be fair, Evelyn mostly did that to herself. Marty's lawyer was able to make a huge stink about her false charges in court, as well as the psychologist's reports, and combined with the fact that Marty already had custody, he and his daughter had been living with his parents since he filed, the judge seemed to think it was appropriate to basically just leave things how they were. It's true what they say, guys, possession is 9/10 of the law. Keep that in mind if you ever get divorced yourselves. The financial fallout didn't seem to be that big of a deal. The house was sold, Marty got a slightly bigger share of it than Evelyn did in lieu of maintenance/alimony, and that was that. I actually had dinner with Marty at a little bar and grill close to where I work one night, and he thanked me again for my help and had a lot of nice things to say about Sarah, which I appreciated. She's really been coming through as an aunt for his little girl and spending time with her pretty frequently. I didn't point out to him that this is because there's no way she'd get to see her when it was Evelyn's weekend, since the sisters are still not talking, but I'm sure he can figure that out on his own. One interesting thing that came out of that dinner is that Marty told me Evelyn wrote him a big letter during the proceedings, begging him for another chance, and in this letter she confessed a lot of things that even Sarah was unaware of. Turns out, this wasn't Evelyn's first adultery rodeo. She had cheated on Marty when they were dating, and again shortly after they got married. Marty and I were both stymied by that. Why would you marry someone you were cheating on? Like, no offense to Marty here, but he's not rich, and he's not some super stud. He's just a slightly quirky, normal-looking high school teacher. If Evelyn didn't like that, then she certainly didn't need to marry him. Anyway, it blew my mind. She went on to say that she was seeing a therapist and working on herself, and all the usual stuff, but neither Marty nor I felt like therapy would help her very much. I mean, it was clear to me that Evelyn's cheating wasn't because of some undiagnosed childhood trauma or self-esteem issues. Given what she tried to pull in court, it's way more likely that she has a morality problem, and I don't think therapy can fundamentally change the nature of someone that drastically. I shared with Marty some of the insights I'd gotten from my conversations with Sarah about her relationship and childhood with Evelyn, and we both came to the conclusion that fundamentally, Evelyn is just a user. She'll basically do whatever she wants, use anyone however she wants, and she'll never consider how it impacts other people because she feels she can just manipulate everyone into getting off her back. Suffice it to say, Evelyn's letter didn't have much of an impact on Marty, or rather, it only firmed up his already solid resolve to divorce her. Marty said that he felt she was so dishonest and manipulative that even her mea culpa confessions had an air of manipulation about them. I tend to agree. I think it was a last-ditch effort to try and appear truthful to him. Too little, too late. Secondly, during this dinner, Marty also told me that he had finally contacted the wife of Jake, the affair partner, a couple of weeks ago. I asked him why he waited so long, and he said he just wanted to make sure that it didn't impact his divorce with Evelyn in some sort of way. I didn't like that answer, but I could at least understand it. He said that she was a nice lady who was apparently incredibly shocked when he presented her with the evidence of what Jake and Evelyn had been up to. Remember, Marty had video of them in his house. It seems that Mrs. Jake had absolutely no clue that anything was going on. She was too busy dealing with their small child, I think 1 or 2 years old. Marty felt pretty bad about the whole thing, but he said that if the situation were reversed, he would have wanted to know. I could only nod in agreement there. It seems like a difficult but necessary thing for him to do. There's no update on whether that couple are getting divorced or not, but Marty said he had the impression that she was going to try to salvage something because of their small child. I did ask him if he was interested in getting back at the guy, but Marty just waved me off. He said that anything he did to him would probably just make it harder for his wife and kid, and he'd rather just get on with his life. I can understand that, but I think Marty is a better guy than I am, because if I were in his shoes, I'd have really put the screws to the guy. Well, I guess Jake has enough of his own problems right now anyway. Lastly, I know people really want an update about me and Sarah, so here it is. We had a good trip in Queensland. The weather was hot but apparently pretty mild this past Christmas. There were lots of beach days and lots of time spent with my nieces. Sarah is an elementary school teacher, and she's fantastic with kids. All in all, it was a great time. I think Sarah and I both found it really helpful to be away from home for a couple of weeks. Being together in a different setting really helped us focus on the here and now, and not so much on the wild trip we'd both been on. By the time we left to come back to the States, we were both in a very relaxed state of mind, and a lot of the problems that had seemed so difficult to get past started to feel a lot smaller. That's not to say there aren't still sore spots for both of us. Predictably, my newfound desire to never get married hasn't been easy for Sarah to adjust to, and, to be frank, the better our relationship got, the more this became an issue. I had to explain to her that it wasn't really about us, or just about us. It was more about witnessing a bunch of bullcrap in a short period of time from a lot of different people that turned me off the idea in general. The cheating, physical and emotional, the lies, the pain, all of it. It just feels way too heavy for me right now to contemplate. She stewed on that for a few days, and then one night while we were washing up after dinner, she asked me if I still intended to have children someday or not. It was a fair question, and one I hadn't really been asking myself. You see, one of the things I had been looking forward to was starting a family with Sarah. I mean this sincerely, she would be an amazing mom. She works with kids every day, so you'd think it would put her off, but rather, you can tell it's basically her calling. Just the way she is with my nieces is freaking adorable. Anyway, I realized that while I may have emotionally given up on marriage, I hadn't given up on having a family. I know that sounds odd, but it shows that I hadn't thought this through all the way. Sarah's question basically made me think much more long-term than I had been willing to before, and I struggled to come up with a good answer at the time. I was pretty open with Sarah about what I was feeling, and she seemed to understand. She said, "I want a family too, but if you don't want one, I'd still want to be with you." It was nice to hear, but I'm not sure I would be happy if that were the case. Like I said, Sarah would be an amazing mom, and it feels like bullcrap on my part if being with me denies her that opportunity. We went back and forth on this a bit, me trying to convince her she was giving up too much, and her holding fast to what she said without backing down. We basically ended the discussion with an agreement on both sides to think about it more and come back to it later. So, that's what I did. I know some people don't want to have kids, but deep down inside, I knew that I did. More than that, I wanted a family, something approximating the family I grew up in as a kid, a mother and father, together with their children, all in the same house. At that point, the issue of being married or not became essentially moot. If you split, there's still child support, custody, and you'll likely be a de facto spouse anyway, splitting communal property and all that jazz. It's like the old saying, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. You can call it whatever you want, but effectively it's a marriage, certificate or not. Once I accepted that, I asked myself whether I'd want that kind of child-rearing, common law type arrangement with anyone else but Sarah. Would it be easier for me to commit to that if it were another woman? The more I thought about it, the less true that felt. I love Sarah, that was never in doubt. My trust in her had been damaged, pretty seriously, but if we'd had more time and hadn't had a wedding looming over our heads, we might have been able to make it work. I honestly felt the time constraint had played a big part in me pulling the pin on the impending nuptials. Now, before anyone gets their hopes up, Sarah and I didn't rush out and get married. We did, however, sit down and have a more serious talk about our future, one that was frankly long overdue. I acknowledged that I still wanted to have a family someday, and she said that if we did have children together, she'd prefer to be married or at least cohabitating. I pointed out to her that those are basically the same thing in our state, at least after a couple of years. She said she knew, and then she surprised me. She went to her purse, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to me. I expected another letter, but it wasn't. It was a prenuptial agreement. I asked her when she'd had it drawn up, and she said it was shortly after we separated. She had intended to plead her case with it at the time but thought better of it once she came to understand my position on where things had landed in our relationship. "I felt like I needed to listen to what you were telling me instead of trying to change your mind," she said. That was eye-opening for me, because I'd thought, evidently incorrectly, that she was much more resentful about the wedding being called off. She said she was more hurt than resentful, and that if she was angry, it was at herself for being stupid. Still, she'd held onto the agreement, probably because she hoped that if the opportunity ever came up, it might prove how seriously she was taking what she had done. I asked her, if I had asked you to marry me, would you have shown this to me? And she said, absolutely. I need you to have complete trust in me. I don't want to let you, or me, down again. I'm pretty good at reading people, and that felt like as honest a statement as I've ever heard from someone. I read the agreement, and yes, I checked the date on her signature, her story checked out. It seemed sensible to me, and there was even an infidelity clause where she had spelled out exactly what she considered infidelity. It was pretty eye-opening. Sarah evidently considers a lot of behaviors that I might have given a pass on much more serious. I mentioned that to her, and she said we could revise it later after a good discussion, but the main points were solid. I agreed with her. Anyway, we put the agreement aside for now and talked a little more about where we go from here. Long story short, I asked her to move back in with me. I think she was stunned because she immediately broke down crying. Sarah is a messy crier, even when she's happy crying, and my t-shirt suffered for it. She still has a few months left on her lease, so she's going to ride it out until that's over, and then we'll move her back into the house. She said that when she moves in, she should sign some sort of rental agreement with me. I told her I thought that was a bit over the top and that it's months away, so let's just park that thought for now. I won't say it felt like we closed one chapter and started another, because it's not quite like that. We've been going through a long process of sorting out our feelings, talking to each other, and, on my part, really observing her actions. In fact, one of the things that kind of hit me in the gut was when Sarah said, "This is the best thing that's happened to me in a long time, and I have, like, almost no one I can talk to about it." You see, it's not just Evelyn that she's not talking to, she's still not talking to her parents either. Her father has made some overtures to stay in contact, but she and her mother are basically treating each other like they died. I have some pretty complicated feelings about this. On one hand, I think her family has been a big part of her problems, and even though she's been working through it with a therapist, neither of us think she's ready to deal with them yet. On the other hand, I do wish things didn't have to be like this for her. After all, my family and hers seem like complete opposites, and I just wish she'd been born into a family like mine instead. There's a lot of really good parts of family life, having good siblings, supportive parents, that Sarah's never really experienced, and that makes me sad for her. Hell, it makes her sad for her as well. But if there's a bright spot, it's that my family never stopped caring about her. Even my parents, I think, have been silently rooting for us to figure things out. So, that's where we are today. We're still working through things at what probably feels like a glacial pace for readers here on Reddit, but that's just how life works sometimes. Overall, I'd have to say that despite appearances, our relationship is much stronger now than it was before I called off the wedding. We both have a much deeper understanding of each other, and frankly, Sarah has really demonstrated a lot of emotional growth in the last year. Jesus, it's been a year, an entire year. It's surreal how fast it's flown by, but I'm glad to put most of it in the rearview mirror. Like I said, I don't think we've turned a corner, it's been way more gradual than that, but I definitely feel like, after some soul-searching, we're back on the right track. P.S. For anyone who cares, I plan on finishing that pagoda this year. There's still enough time to get it done before summer's over, and I'd like to have at least a few fireside nights outside with my ex-fiancée and current girlfriend. Wild that it's been a year already. I think most of us were rooting for Sarah to go no contact with her family and truly work on herself. This Redditor is proud of her. She could have doubled down and continued to go along with her sister's bullcrap, but she didn't. Every update, she's been trying to do the right thing in whatever situation she's faced. Looking back on it, I think the moment she started to change was when you sat down in the armchair and started asking questions. Sarah could have lied to protect her sister, which sounds like what she was trained to do. Evelyn wouldn't have been so shocked at her admissions otherwise. She chose to be honest with you. In that moment, she made the first right choice in a series of difficult decisions, and it seems like she's truly taken accountability for her mistakes. That being said, I'd highly recommend couples counseling to work through any residual issues that may come up. I will say, it speaks volumes about your character that you were willing to work through this with her. Based on what you've written, I hope you're able to talk with someone and work through the trust issues that developed because of all this, which, honestly, who could blame you? Overall, it sounds like you're moving in a good direction. I'm happy for you, OP. I keep going back to that confrontation, and the fact that she immediately told me the truth did a lot to keep me from just writing her off. It was also clear that she was choosing to be truthful to me, albeit too late, over protecting her sleazy sister. It might not have seemed like a big deal to other people, but it was a huge deal to me.